Let's delve into the crucial question of how, now that we have thoroughly discussed and understood these fundamental concepts, specifically the notion of an entity, the encompassing idea of context, the intricate framework of the semantic web, and all the related principles and implications, how exactly do we proceed to effectively implement these sophisticated ideas and their underlying mechanisms within the vast and ever-evolving digital world, and more precisely, within the complex architectures and operational systems of modern computers? How do we use them, and what are they even called? Well, for years now, a concept called structured data has emerged. The idea is for us to organize data in a structured way, to make data structured. Many large projects were launched, some of which started as early as the 1950s. In the 1950s and 60s, these projects were implemented under various names. Some of them still exist, and nowadays we hear about new methods like schema.org, which is a website somewhat owned by Google, but others are also involved and are helping to develop it. Let's take a look at the story of structured data to see what it is and how it can be implemented. So basically, when we organize data in a structured way, we call it structured data. But how do we implement it? I'll start with Google. I searched for structured data and semantic web. This is the part where Google's own AI gives us a response. It says that it's a backbone of a solid search engine optimization strategy. This is the era of semantic search. Well, we know that we're now in the age of semantic searches, and behind the scenes, AI understands our tone, what we say, our intent, all of that. That era of semantic search, here it says the age of semantic searches, and it says that actually structured data is the main backbone that's influencing search engines. Yes, as we mentioned, structured data is made up of entities. These entities each have a lot of attributes, and these attributes have many connections with other attributes, which in turn create other entities. There are various intents, axes, and different drills. I actually wanted to show you a picture from the world of Harry Potter. Now, this was an example I found on the internet and wanted to talk about. If we mention Harry Potter depicts a vast world and a big story, though I don't really know all the names. If I make a mistake, I hope Harry Potter fans won't take it personally. Let's just see what it's about. I think it's just starting to mention the characters here. Let's see if we can find Dumbledore. For example, I genuinely and truly don't even really know the specific names. Yerma Prince, or perhaps Prince Yerma. I believe it's located right here. Or for instance, I genuinely and absolutely cannot seem to find the esteemed Dumbledore at all. I don't know them either. It's saying that these people are connected to each other. The concepts are related to each other, which is actually what happens in the Harry Potter story. Another name. This picture comes from right here. Another word. Here we can see, if you look, this picture looks a lot like a graph. It's a graph where these big and small circles, probably based on the importance or size of the character, are formed. And here it shows their connections. For example, this one has such a difficult name. This gentleman or lady, for example, is connected to this one. Lily Jade Potter, for instance, is connected to this one. Now, the relationships aren't written, and it hasn't specified what kind of relationship it is either. The relationship is probably mutual. And again, here we come to another term called knowledge graph. I like to define it this way. All the sciences in the world, all the knowledge in the world are somehow interconnected. But nowadays, we know that even computer science is related to genetics. Mechanical engineering is connected to biology, and so on and so forth. All sciences are interconnected. As we can see, entities in the world can be anything. So all sciences can be connected to each other as well. Here it says that a knowledge graph is an organized presentation of the real world, which depicts the real world. World entity and relationship is saying the same thing. It says that this knowledge graph represents the real world, and it's a much bigger project, which is why large companies like Google are involved. This whole knowledge graph concept, it's not even just Google, but Alphabet itself defines this project and pursues it, connecting all the world's sciences and all the world's entities together. It's like that graphic we saw, which was just about Harry Potter. Now imagine how all the entities in the world and all the world's knowledge are interconnected. And this knowledge graph is essentially what we encounter in the context of the semantic web. Of course, if you don't dig deep, you might not get much information out of it. If you want to know more and truly master structured data, let me tell you right here. There's a book from 2015 and it hasn't had any other editions. It's just that one edition, and you can find it on Amazon as paperback, Kindle, and so on. You can see its prices. It's called Mastering Structured Data and the Semantic Web. It's about 250 pages, I think. Of course, I've only read a part of it. I haven't read it all at all. But it's a really good and comprehensive book for seeing precisely how, from scratch, with absolutely no pre-existing template, microdata effectively connects you to the vast realm of open data. Open data is essentially kind of like connecting all the world's diverse and extensive data together and making it readily available to everyone across the globe. There's something interesting about it. Definitely read about it. But let's see how we, as SEOs, view structured data, how we recognize it, and how we interact with it. All right, let's go back to this page again. So there was a project years ago. I honestly don't know which year it was, but I think it's written here. Yeah. Since April 2015, the W3C, which is actually the core global web standards organization, the World Wide Web Consortium, or W3C, has introduced the schema.org community group as the reference. So that was around the time when HTML5 was coming out. That was also the era of structured data. It was the time when, in fact, artificial intelligence was practically being integrated into search engines, and that's when schema.org was formed. Yahoo, Microsoft, Google, and Yandex were all involved. All of them were collaborating together. If you go to the About page on schema.org, you'll clearly see the names listed, but it also explains how to use structured data. How do we implement these in the world of HTML5? It says, first of all, we need to have a large vocabulary, or what you might call a dictionary, a database. For every entity or property that exists in the world, this project tries to provide and complete its information fields. I'm not opening the page right now because my VPN and proxy have crashed at the worst possible moment, so I can't open schema.org at the moment. For all these entities in the world, well, not all actually, it itself says that it has covered a certain number of properties in the world so far. It gives a number saying it has tried to provide information for them. For example, you've seen one instance yourself. For product, it has defined a whole bunch of information fields. It has price, weight, color, folder, but not the buyer. Other things. And these vocabularies, it has defined these entities along with their attributes. It has defined as completely as possible what attributes they can have. And now it explains how to implement these, how to implement this structured data on your own website, on your page, and three methods are introduced. The first one is actually JSON-LD, microdata, and RDFA, and as you know, the easiest and most widely used one today is JSON-LD, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation for Linked Data. Microdata and RDFA can also be implemented, but they're a bit more difficult because you have to go into your HTML code and make those changes. Updating them becomes a bit more difficult. It's a little harder for developers. You can see examples of these on the schema.org website itself, what RDFA looks like, what microdata looks like, and even how it gives you JSON-LD with a sample. And now not having this VPN has become a hassle for me. I can't access them without it. But anyway, just go to schema.org itself, enter those schemas here, and it will give you the list. You can select whichever you want. For example, event, product, FAQ. I don't know how to, or a bunch of others are there too. Click on them and you can read their information. This site is a place that provides you with structured data, but which ones are actually useful for us? Which ones should we use? Which ones are better for us SEOs to use? That's a different story. Actually, it's better if we don't have it. Let's go and see. Google actually has something quite specific called the Google Search Gallery, which I genuinely think even if I were to search for it right now, it still absolutely would not come up in the search results. It's because of the proxy issue. When I attempt to go there, it unfortunately gives me a 403 error right now, preventing access. I don't know why my Chrome is acting like this. Well, so we end up on this 403 page. Now, I'll tell you from memory what you see there. When you go into this, I'll show you an example of it. Right now, I can't access it. There are a ton of structured data types that Google has introduced, which you can use as structured data, rich snippets, and so on. Each of them has its own use in Google and its results. Now, we'll look at it somewhere else so we can have access to it. So I did a quick search and it was interesting. I searched for the result of FAQ structured data. I saw that our own website actually appears in the 0 position and is shown in Google's results. It says, what is structured data? Structured data. Currently, FAQ questions and answers are not reviewed by Google, and in fact, it's just a piece of code. This is an example of structured data, which we're about to take a look at together. So on our website, we have a section called Free Tools, Structured Data Tool, FAQ, Article, and for example, we've added these two as structured data. And it gives you a JSON-LD output. Try to use the same JSON-LD. It's a piece of code that is placed inside a script tag, or in JavaScript. The application uses JSON-LD. At the beginning, we've explained all of this completely in the video, what it is, but actually, Q&A is created on our pages. Imagine you've written an article, written some text, or created a page that might have a lot of questions and answers in it. The product you're selling, people have questions about it. Present the frequently asked questions in a way that people can see them and enjoy them. And also so that the search engine can read them and actually understand what they mean. So it knows what you're talking about and can make that connection. So its knowledge graph about your page becomes complete. So it says, for example, use something like this, like JSON-LD to define it. Here, for instance, we say, how can I, let's say, referring to that same book, how can I get a printed copy of this book? Well, this is one of the frequently asked questions. So what's the answer to this particular query? For this specific situation, you can, for example, directly contact the esteemed publisher. Let's say the renowned Razi publishing house located in the vibrant city of Tehran, in the country of Iran, for instance, to obtain the necessary information or clarification and so on. Now, this is merely the initial question that has been posed. It is quite possible, and indeed probable, that you might have several additional related or even entirely distinct questions that require comprehensive answers and further exploration. Here's another question people often ask. How long does it take for the printed book to reach me? This is also another question that people frequently ask. You can say that the printed book in its original 30-copy edition, for example, will be delivered to your door in about 30 to 45 days. Well, instead of Google having to read through the text and HTML code to find this information, it's much easier for it. It's very easy for it to read this. It says, this is the question, this is the answer, this is the question, this is the answer. You can add as many as you want to it. Now, this becomes our code. You copy this code, where do you put it? It gets placed in this part of your HTML. You might have written it with a CMS like WordPress, for example. In WordPress, you can manually place this code, but WordPress has tons of plugins for these kinds of tasks. For example, Rank Math, or what was it called, Yoast, they have this feature. Then there's also Schema Pro, for instance. I think that's a plugin too. You can use those as well. There's no need to perform this action manually, but it is beneficial to at least thoroughly learn and understand its fundamental structure. Look, the HTML code inherently possesses a well-defined and organized structure, much like this. For instance, within the head section, specifically at the very end of the head element, you should precisely place this particular piece of code. I'm now going to proceed with copying this important segment. Let's assume I've written a bunch of stuff here, blah, blah, blah. I've called my CSS files. The last thing I call is this. Now let's put the organized version in. The developers themselves know what to do to organize it. Let's say, for example, we've organized it now. Now the ID here is for a simple code editor, and when Google comes to this page, it quickly reads this structured data. It's organized and tidy, like an array, like a well-structured notation. It reads that and quickly understands what the page is about, which really helps with your indexing. It really helps Google understand how mature and useful your page is. All right, now we have an example of it here. Another example, for instance, is a free tool for article structured data. Now we have these two examples which are in Persian. There's a website called, well, it's closed now, Why Technical SEO, which in its tools section or SEO tools section, if you go to the script markup generator part, most of the things we SEOs need, basically the structured data we require, are available here. For example, article, breadcrumb, which most of you know what it is. I might make an episode for each of these one by one and share them if they're important to you. Event, okay, there's an event, we have a conference, what's its name? What's its description? What's its image, its address? When is its date? For example, its status, scheduled, canceled. For now, it's being planned at the moment. Its attendance mode, is it online, offline, or a mix of both? If it has a stream URL, what's the time for it? You enter all of these, like the street, city, alley, and so on. How are its tickets being sold? You enter all that information, and it gives you a code like this. So you take this code and put it on your website. You might say, hey, my website is custom coded. I can't put this in the head section. That's okay. You give this sample code to the developer and tell them, replace the sample values I've put here with your own variables. Just put your variable in there. Naturally, the developer won't hard code something like the street address. They're not going to put, for example, Valley Astor Street as you wrote in the sample. Instead, they'll use a variable like the street name and set it to whatever is appropriate, like Amin for the street or just street. Or they'll use whatever is actually stored in the variable, replacing your sample value with whatever they have, and a separate schema will be generated for each page. Remember to write that whatever is generated here should be included on all your pages. In that case, the structured data for all your pages will be identical. It's like you have a single object. Your entity will be just one for everything. And now let's say you've set each of these as product, person, video, or the website itself. If I connect to each of these one by one with a VPN, I'll record separate episodes for each one. I'll show you how to use each of them. It'll be a short episode. You should probably run a test after you've set this up. Naturally, you absolutely should not go ahead and launch it without thoroughly testing it first. For example, let's meticulously check if SEO Labs articles, since we've already posted numerous blog posts, have structured data or not, which is a crucial aspect for proper indexing and search engine optimization. If they do, is it set up correctly or not? Is there any issue, for instance? Okay, the editorial team meticulously wrote this document on the 18th of Shahrivar 1403. I will certainly take careful note of that. Regarding the SEO contract, let's proceed to the essential address, which is validatorschema.org. After you have successfully added your schema to your website, we absolutely want to use a reliable tester like this to meticulously check whether the schema you have diligently used is indeed correct or not. So there are two ways. Either we copy and paste the code into the code snippet, which is usually heavy, or we just enter the URL. It works in both cases, so don't worry. If you click run test and it doesn't work, that would be really unlikely. Now the result says I recognize this as a web page. You can see that our articles page doesn't have structured data for articles. We teach it ourselves, but then we don't actually have it. Our technical team beautifully removes it. I remember we used to have it at some point, but now it's gone. Now, whatever URL you give it, it will analyze that part for you. And if there's an error or a warning, it will let you know so you can go and fix it. These schemas, in fact, your structured data, can also be seen in the enhancement section of your Search Console results. If you look at each of these, structured data, breadcrumbs, site links, videos, these sites have them. Now, a site might have more or fewer of these, and if there's any error or issue, it will tell you here that all of them are valid. I found 14, all of them are valid, and I can check their URLs. Now, if you haven't thoroughly checked with the validator, you'll also consistently get these important alerts in your Google Search Console, clearly showing you precisely what it fully supports. It meticulously tells you what structured data truly is and whether it currently has any significant errors or not, providing comprehensive insights into its validity and proper implementation. All right, we've covered the validator, and there's nothing special left. As I mentioned, go ahead and implement these crucial and important changes in Google Search Console. Now, we will certainly have separate and distinct episodes dedicated to each and every one of these, delving into them one by one in comprehensive detail.